To another adventure slash video of my bourbon channel, Bourbon with a taste of military history. Hey, I'm your host Clem, and we're back again to talk about bourbon and some battle or event that occurred in the American military history, which is what my favorite thing is to do. And we're just here to have a great time. We'll spend a few minutes talking bourbon, talk a few minutes about a battle, we'll even talk about a book, and who knows what else we'll talk about. Well, but I can guarantee you and assure you that we will have a good time doing it, and we will drink bourbon. And to be honest with you, is there really a bad bourbon? I mean, there may be for some people, but hey, if somebody offers me a bourbon, I'm drinking it. So what we're going to talk about today, though, is normally we discuss a bourbon that is from a small local distillery in whatever state it is, but not one of the major players where they ship bourbon all across the country, and like say Maker's Mark or Knob Creek or Woodford or any of those other type of bourbons that you see a lot of. Normally I'd like to just spend my time talking about obscure bourbons that you normally probably may not buy, would not see, but maybe on your travels you might want to decide to stop in a local liquor store like I do and see what they have for sale. And I always try to buy locals, so when I'm on a trip somewhere, I'm pulling into liquor stores in different cities and different states and trying to buy their stuff up. So let's go. But today I had been seeing recently on my Facebook channel a lot of advertisement for a bourbon called Duke. It has allegedly been, or probably has been, they found lost bottles of John Wayne's bourbon, and that this is his recipe, and that one of the local distilleries in Kentucky decided to mess with it. And they got the recipes and they messed with it and experimented with it, did scientific stuff, and they believe they have got the recipe back to John Wayne's original taste of his bourbon. And since I'm a huge John Wayne fan, I thought let's go ahead and break out the mode a little bit and talk about a national bourbon. So we're going to talk today about Duke Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. It's distilled and blended in Kentucky in the good old US of A. Its original recipe is 1962. This bottle that we're going to drink from was bottled in 2018. So let's talk about it a little bit before we drink it. I've got their website open because, like I said, I really don't know a whole lot about it other than they had a great Facebook campaign. It does say the original recipe was, crafted by John Wayne in 1962. It was meticulously blended, and I'm speaking from their website. Meticulously blended to replicate and honor the tasty notes and profile preferred by John Wayne, using his original recipe from 1962 and his private collection to guide flavor and aromatics. Proprietary mash bill of predominantly American bent corn with additions of rye and 6-row barley. There's, even as old as I am, and as long as I've been around, and as much school as I've gone to, I still run into words that I have a hard time pronouncing. It's distilled and aged in Kentucky the old-fashioned way, of course, in small batches and aged in heavily charred new and hand-built American oak barrels. Excellent. A unique blend of 88 proof, a little low for my side, but I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised by the taste of this one. Aged a minimum of 5 years in barrels hand-selected for perfection. It's got a mash bill of 75% American bent corn, 13% rye, 12% 6-row barley, and it's distilled and bottled in Owensboro, Kentucky at O.Z. Tyler Distillery on Kentucky 11. Its founder is Chris Radmosky, and the master distiller is Jacob Call. Jacob, you did good on this one, buddy. I don't know you, but you did good. Let's pour a little bit of this thing into my famous Glengarry glass, which, by the way, you really don't have to have this to do this. I only do this because it's good special effects for my audience, and I don't want them to think I'm just some guy, from Arkansas that really doesn't understand his bourbon. Now, when you're looking at it, I really like the color. It's a dark amber color, almost copperly-like. And it's already, look at that. I mean, even that right there, it holds its legs very, very well. I like that. Let's see. I'm going to smell it and try to tell you what I smell. But you know, we've been through this before in every episode. My nose is not very good on this kind of stuff. And I'm always, looks kind of funny because I'm trying to breathe through my nose and keep my mouth open so I get the smell. It's kind of funny looking, really. Ooh, you know what I smell? And I'm not looking at the thing, but I smell apple. I really do. I really smell apple. Ooh, that's weird. You guys, you know, have been following me on YouTube. You know I don't really smell very often, but I'm smelling some apple there. Let's see what they say. It says it opens with a subtle charred oak, roasted nuts, hints of vanilla, caramel, and nutmeg. Mid-palate provides warm peppery spice and toasted nuts, and a deeply satisfying, robust sweetness in perfect combination. You know what I'm smelling? It's not apple. I'm thinking apple. It's caramel. It must be the caramel. Now I'm smelling the oak. But hey, doesn't do any good if you don't drink it. Am I correct? Let's try it out and see what we got. Got a little bite on it for an 88. Yeah. Ooh. You know, I can actually taste. I'm not tasting the nuts because that's not. But what I think I'm getting a little bit of the barrel, and I like that. I bought some bourbon at a tasting in Albuquerque at a Total Wine, and I could really taste. I thought they were using oak barrels, but they did some mesquite stuff in it too, I think. I could really taste that, and so I bought the bottle immediately. And when I got the bottle home and started tasting, I didn't get any of that. So there you go. Let's try a little bit deeper taste here. Yeah. I tell you guys, I'm not sure what I actually paid for this bottle. I want to say maybe the $39 range. It could have been a little bit more expensive, but this is a good bourbon. I'm going to put it on my tried and true Clem way. You know, we're going to put it over a little bit of ice, let it sit for a while, and you know, try to see what that water does to bring it out a little bit. And we'll continue to taste on this a little bit. Now, the Duke Distillery, I'm looking at their website, and they have several different products, I think. They have what is this? Grand Cru. I don't know what that would be more. Duke Grand Cru Kentucky Reserve Bourbon. I have not seen that. It's 9-year-old bourbon. So I'm gonna have to look for that now. I did not know they had that. I thought this was all they offered, and now I'm seeing that they offer more than that. They offer that 9-year-old, 5-year-old, 9-year-old, and then of course they have a rye, which is good. Duke Grand Cru Double Barrel Rye, 100% Kentucky rye, 90% rye, 5% malted barley, done in French oak, and it's 9-year-old. So if you're out there looking for some good stuff, Duke Distillery is doing some good things. I mean, I haven't tried the other two, but I can't believe that they would be anything less than what the 5-year-old is, which I'm enjoying immensely, by the way. So let's try it now with the ice that's melted a little bit in it. You know, I don't get anything after the water, after the ice, dude. I'm just smelling the ice cube. So different taste. Took the bite completely away. But tastes good. There's a different taste. I like that. Yeah, I like that. I'll tell you what. Let's pour this one right here into the glass. And now let's just discuss a few more things. Duke Distillery, Look for it at your liquor stores or wherever you buy your spirits from. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I know I was. And I'm going to buy the other 2 bottles as soon as I can find them. Talk to my local guy at my local liquor store and see if he can't get them for me. If not, I'll find them on some of my travels, and we'll go ahead and review them later on too. So, what I would like to talk about next is a battle, Apache battle. Since we're talking about the Duke, we're going to talk about an Apache battle in New Mexico. I just have to find it again. Let's see, I'm messing around with this iPad, you know. I wish I could keep page after page and I wouldn't have to do that. I'm Apache Indian Wars. We're going to talk about one of the very first Apache Indian Wars. I don't think John Wayne was involved in this one. The Apache Wars were a series of armed conflicts between the United States Army and various Apache nations fought in the Southwest between 1849 and 1866. Though, and I didn't know this until today, they had hostilities as late as 1924. And I'm also going to surprise you with something about the Apache Wars. I'm doing tremendous research and have for the last 20 years on a local Civil War battle in a town called Brownsville, Arkansas. It doesn't exist anymore. In fact, I'm actually writing a book on this battle. And one of the major players in that battle during the Civil War was a player in this first battle, this first American Indian battle. He was a general in the Civil War, but he was a first lieutenant in this battle. And we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. So we're going to go to Apache Wars and one of my favorite sites, Wikipedia, who, by the way, is asking for a lot of money right now, and I don't understand why, but we'll figure that one out later on. The United States Army established forts to control the Apache bands. Several reservations were created, and some on and off, some of the traditional areas occupied the bands. In 1886, the U.S. Army put over 5,000 men in the field to wear down and finally accept the surrender of Geronimo. Now, we're not going to talk about Geronimo, but I have been to Geronimo's gravesite several times. And if I make a trip to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, I go always to Geronimo's grave. Great warrior. You know, no matter what anybody can say, the man was a huge warrior who led his people well, and just a different time. But you got to respect him for being a warrior. So we're going to go to the first battle, or one of the very first incidents of the Apache Wars, and it's called the Jicarilla War. And it was at the start of the Mexican-American War in 1846. Many Apache bands promised American soldiers safe passage through their land. And they even fought in defense of Mexico and against the influx of new settlers to the New Mexico territory. When the United States claimed the frontier territories of Mexico in 1848, Mangus Colorado signed a peace treaty respecting the Americans as the conquerors of the Mexican land. However, as Till relates regarding the treaty signed at Santa Fe on April 2nd, 1851, the Jicarillas were expected to comply with the terms of the treaty immediately. Yet as far as the New Mexicans were concerned, their part of the bargain would not go into effect only after Congress had ratified it. So you can see right off the bat, once again, and this has been the very beginning, you know, the United States government and the people are promising the American Indians one thing, and then because of the law, the white man's law, they sidestepped it. The United States, by the way, never ratified the treaty. An uneasy peace between the Apache and the Americans persisted until an influx of gold miners into the Santa Rita Mountains of present-day Arizona led to the conflict. The Jicarilla War began in 1849 when a group of settlers were attacked and killed by a force of Jicarillas and Utes in northeastern New Mexico, near north of Taos, New Mexico, present-day Taos. A second massacre occurred in 1850 in which several mail carriers were massacred. It wasn't until 1853 that the Army became involved. The Army went on to fight at the Battle of Sengulaya, a significant Apache victory, and then later at the Battle of Ojai Caliente Canyon, which was an American victory. We're only going to talk about the Battle of Sengulaya right now. So basically what happened was the Americans army, with only about 60 to 100 soldiers, met the Apache Indians with about 200 braves near Taos, New Mexico right now, and had a massive battle, which at the time was huge. I mean, you're talking just 200 Indian braves, 60 to 80, maybe 100 American soldiers of the 1st Dragoon Calvary, and but it lasted for 4 hours. The lieutenant who instigated the battle, and there's some discrepancy in how the battle was started. In fact, this officer actually went in front of a board of inquiry after this to answer to charges that he instigated the battle and could have avoided it had he done some things differently. And these charges were brought on by some of the survivors of the battle. Now, when you have 60 soldiers, 22 killed, 36 wounded, and there's like only 4 or 5 guys that came away unscathed from this after a 4-hour battle with the Apaches, where they lost approximately 50 braves. So hence an Indian victory, because the United States Cavalry, after 4 hours of fighting, were able to successfully disengage from the conflict, and they moved out of there and moved to the safety of an old local fort until help could be sent to help them out. Of course, the Indians then fled toward the mountains, and eventually they were caught up with, and another battle occurred that we talked about earlier, the Battle of Ojo Caliente Canyon, where the American soldiers were victorious in that battle. But we're not going to discuss that right now. The young lieutenant that started this battle with the Apache Indians was John Wynn Davidson, a guy that went by the nickname of Blackjack Davidson later on. This man rose to prominence basically at part of this battle. During the Board of Inquiry, it was alleged that he could have avoided the conflict and was recklessly, in fact, even taunted the Indians into battle. Now, this was never actually confirmed, and by the Indian account or by the Americans with any kind of proof. But nevertheless, the battle was fought, and John Wynn Davidson was later praised and promoted and awarded medals based upon his ability to lead his soldiers in an overwhelming, outmatched fight for several hours with the American Indians, and then successfully disengage from that conflict and retreat and save what men he could. So he was promoted and moved up, and eventually you hear of John Wayne Davidson, or John Wayne Davidson, when I hear from him again, is at the Battle of Brownsville during the siege for the capture of the state of Arkansas, the city of Little Rock, in August of 1863, when he led 9,000 cavalry soldiers from his cavalry into Arkansas, along with 20,000 plus infantry, to take the capital city of Arkansas, Little Rock. And John Wayne Davidson's first major in battle in Arkansas was the Battle of Brownsville, like I said, on August 23rd, 1863, a decisive victory for the 30,000 plus American soldiers going against about 1,500 to 2,000 Confederate cavalrymen outside the community of Brownsville, Arkansas. So that's when I heard of John Wayne Davidson, Blackjack Davidson. Now, he did go on after the Civil War to went back out west and to fight the American Indians after the Civil War. And it's my understanding, and I'm not going to quote this, but if I remember my readings right from way back then, he was actually died when his horse threw him sometime after the Civil War. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that was correct. and he is now buried at Arlington National Cemetery in Washington, D.C. So, that's the battle. Now, there is a lot of interest in the American Indian Wars. I find at times that as a historian, that I have neglected to spend much time on those battles, and I blame that on my history professor back in the 70s when I went to Northern Michigan University, and I took a class US History to 1865, and my professor and I got into it about the American Indians' participation in the battles. You have to understand, back in college I was kind of what you would consider a radical, and did not conform to his ways. Now, in my defense, when I wrote my final paper for that class, I was correct in everything I said, and I quoted great sources and all that. My professor, though, told me that I did not follow his instructions and that I did not listen to his lectures, or I would not have taken that stand that I took in my last paper. Got a D in the class, first time I've ever got anything below a B in a history class. Retook the class at a different university and got a straight A in it. Just sometimes you just don't get along with your professor. That's just life. You don't get along with some people, you have difference of opinion, and it happens. But I quit actually doing a whole lot of studying on that kind of the American West, which is a shame because, you know, it's worthy. I mean, we have so much history in the United States that it's worthy of talking more about. And that's one of the things why I like to sit here and drink bourbon with you guys and talk about the American West. Now, my next episode, unfortunately, is not going to be about the American West. It's actually going to be about the first American involvement during World War I. And we're going to, at that one, we're going to taste some bourbons from New York, since the first unit to fight in World War I was from New York. You know, just had some time to sit here and get more water into it. It may be just me. Maybe just me. Maybe I just like my bourbon this way, and it could be just a personal taste. But I mean, I think it tastes really, really good. Hey, listen. If you get an opportunity, I'm a huge fort guy, castles, forts, any kind of stuff like that. So I'm spending a lot of time studying right now about the forts of the West. And this is a great book for you right here. It's called Forts of the West, written by a guy named Robert Fraser, pretty much considered the guru, the main guy about forts in the far west. It's published by University of Oklahoma Press in Norman, Oklahoma. I think that if you want to learn anything about the American West, the American Indian Wars, Calvary, Apache Indians, Cheyenne, Shoshone, all those famous tribes, you need to understand why we put our forts, where we put them, what we were doing out there, and what our aims were, and you can learn a whole lot about it. I am actually starting to do the research on another book that I'm going to write called Forts on the Arkansas River. Right from the confluence of the Mississippi all the way to Colorado, there was 23 forts built in the Arkansas River, and when I write that book, you guys will be the first ones to know, and hopefully everybody will buy one. Well, we've been going for about 23 minutes right now, and I think that's plenty of time for this video. Once again, thanks for sitting here watching. If you like it, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel. I mean, holy cow, it's just fun doing this. Well, that wasn't good. Cat knocked the box over. Dang. I like doing these videos. I enjoy them, and it's a great chance to sit and talk to you, my friends, and talk about history and drink bourbon. So, go out and find a good bourbon, enjoy it, keep drinking bourbon, and thank you once again for watching Bourbon with a Taste of Military History. Bye.